It is 10 o'clock. Let's call this meeting.
Yeah, you guys there.
Roll call, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Wilkinson.
Here.
Commissioner Mullins.
Here.
Commissioner Gallagher.
Here.
Quorum being present.
Okay, let's stand as you wish for the pledge and the invocation. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we ask your presence in the meeting here as we do the business of the county. We ask that you be with us individually and collectively. We're so thankful for everything you've given us. We ask all this in Jesus' name.
Thank you so much. Consent agenda is approval of last week's regular, minutes of last week's regular meeting, the collector monthly report, and the removal from inventory of surplus equipment from the recorder of deeds. Motion? Second.
Not second that motion.
All in favor, say aye, please. Aye. Aye, thank you. Table items, we are going to annual bids. The treasurer, how do you want to work this? You want to just approve them, or?
Well, they all have some individual things that a couple of them may want to have some comments on. First, I want to thank everybody last week, especially Linda and the people that worked on it last week, because it went fine. Some of them, the departments have brought back in. Some of them, the auditor has said, this was not according to the bid spec. And so we have to, and that was the purpose you all had to send the stuff to that department, is to make sure that what they bid was actually appropriate. And so with that, there's a couple that are wanting to accept their bids, and a couple that have authorized a rebid because it did not meet the spec.
Those will be later in the meeting.
Right,
in the
so
middle on that.
I think
we'll
they'd like to
discuss that
talk.
a little bit later today.
But I don't know if anybody that's
Okay,
got the
is
bids
treasurer,
want to talk about it.
anybody from treasurer also want to comment?
I don't have any comments.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, no comment, okay. County clerk,
Ours is
anybody?
good.
No comment, maintenance?
On your bids.
I got a bid, I don't know if you wanna do mine today or not.
Okay,
It's just on my cars.
okay, I don't have that on the agenda,
Okay.
so if it's
I'll
not
do it next
critical, we'll
week.
do it next week. Okay, thank you, Bud. And then we will talk later about rejecting the salt bids and the pest control bids for those reasons. Okay, well, we wanna act on this? Act on those as approval? Okay, motion,
I would move that we approve the accepted bids.
second?
And I'd second that motion.
Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, aye. Regular business, they have canceled for their own reasons, their own schedule situation, they will reschedule. And we're going to hear from Senator Hawley's office. Matt?
Commissioner, thank you all. Just introduced everybody, my name is Matt Bain. I am going to serve as the Southeast Missouri District Office Director for Senator Hawley's office, based out of Cape Girardeau, but I'm as often in commission rooms most mornings and places like that as I am there. Just a little bit about my background. I'm from Sikeston, Missouri, worked in agriculture and a little bit in government for the last 10 or 12 years, primarily with my family in agriculture. But all I'm here today is to hear from you all, from other citizens in the county. The senator and his team, we believe very much that government closest to the people is the best kind of government, and that the three folks that you all here in St. Francis County put behind that table are some of the best to inform me and the senator into critical issues you all are facing. I don't have much here, just other than to learn and listen to what kind of issues y'all are dealing with the federal government.
Okay. Kevin?
And how big a territory are you gonna have?
25 counties.
Are you having Jefferson, or is Jefferson in yours?
The Jefferson is not
So
in
this will stop at St. Genevieve in it?
St. Genevieve, St. Francis, Washington, and Crawford.
Will you have
my-
regular listening posts, or are you just gonna?
Absolutely, yes, sir. We're working on getting all those internal processes flushed out, but I believe very much in the listening post.
Are you sharing with Blunt's office in Cape, or you have a separate?
No, sir. I am in the federal courthouse there in Cape Girardeau. But if anybody's needing for a meeting or anything, I can come and
you have cards available today?
Yes,
For your
absolutely.
contacts?
Yes, sir.
Matt, I'm anxious to work with you and talk with you and.
Absolutely, and probably an informal visit after the
Right.
meeting's probably a better format for this, but
Very
just
much so.
even in this public setting, we're here to try and help you all solve problems for folks. We let them in DC tackle the big issues. I am a master of not small issues, but issues that are important locally. And just looking forward to working with you all. I'm working for the folks of the county, and I'm available to anybody. Maybe not 24 hours a day, but as close as I can other than sleeping. So
And
thank
I wanted to offer, I've represented a lot of the Deep South counties, and so if somebody needs an interpreter, they would like to talk to me.
And by the same thing, the clerk and I have had the fortune to work together in some of his past incarnations. And I'm not exactly sure what the proper decorum to refer to him is, but I've had the privilege to work with him, and in addition to the commissioners, will be a great contact and voice for you all with me. But we're just here to listen and learn. So thank you all for having
Does
us.
anyone else have any questions for Matt? Well, Matt, thank you. We look forward to
Yes, sir.
working with you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I'll be around after the meeting, visit with whoever.
Thank you. Landfill closure cost update. We have Alan and Greg here, and how do we want to handle this, gentlemen?
Well, I can speak for the corporation. Alan Options here. Alan's been running the St. Francis County Environmental Corporation for 35 years. I'm one of the volunteer board members that serves on it. There's 7 of us. Each of the city administrators represents it. Patrick is.
How much do you all get paid annually?
Well,
Because I heard on the internet it was outrageous.
well, Alan's wife makes some really great chicken and rice stew, and we get a pot of that once a year at our annual meeting that she makes for us.
And you're not compensated, okay, because
That's
I saw that on some places,
compensation.
that you guys were milking the system dry with your pay, and that you don't
No,
get paid
it's-
at all.
We don't receive any compensation. In fact, there are 10 employees that work for the corporation, full-time and part-time. The highest paid employee there, which is a long-term employee, is $14 an hour, so nobody's lining their pockets on trash in St. Francis County. It's just not happening. A little bit of history for the folks that are here today. The Environmental Corporation was formed in 1972 by the county judges, as they were called at the time, the county commission, your predecessors, for the purpose of establishing and operating a landfill. The property where the landfill sits was deeded to the corporation from the county in 1973 with a reversion clause. If the corporation ever fails to meet its obligations of operating the landfill or doing recycling operations, the property reverts back to the county. It's also a Superfund site. Might keep that in mind. It's part of the old St. Joe mine property, and we also just had a surface right. St. Joe always preserved the mineral rights to all the ground up there. So it operated as a landfill pretty profitably until about the mid-90s. For about 20 years it operated, and then DNR wanted it closed. So the closure process started. And I want to stipulate there are 2 pieces we're talking about. One is the closure process, one is the post-closure process, because under the DNR regulations, they're separate and distinct. At the time the closure process started, there was some cash reserves available with the landfill. So they agreed with the county. I've got a draft copy of the agreement in our records. I don't have the actual signed copy. I presume you have it here. That the corporation would pay the closure cost, which they did. The escrow amount was levied at $900,000 at the time to complete the closure. The closure was completed in 1997. When the landfill was closed, the county signed a financial assurance instrument with Missouri Department of Natural Resources and accepted responsibility for the post-closure cost, which is what we approached you all about. The corporation has paid those expenses since 1997 through today, so 22 years, what is it, 30-year process. And that's fine and reasonable. The corporation existed. As long as we had the revenue to do that, we needed to handle it. There have been a lot of changes through the years. Most notably for us is the diversion of solid waste from the transfer station to the other landfills. There has been, during that period, a landfill open that was in closer proximity for haulers to haul to. And I think most impactful is that more and more of the trash service is migrating to the large corporations, CWI, Republic Services, and Waste Management, where they operate their own landfills. So all that waste, as they get a bigger and bigger share of the market, is bypassing landfill, or the transfer station, and we operate on margins. That's how we pay the bills. So my affiliation with it started when I came to work here 18 years ago. it's always been pretty much a hand-to-mouth kind of operation, you know, just pay the bills as we went along. And we have, borrowed money for operating expenses, not capital expenses, but actual just, operating borrowing. We still have debt of about $76,000 on an unsecured loan. We have a $50,000 line of credit that is tapped out right now, to pay those operating expenses. And then we have a capital, loan on some equipment that's got about 11,000 left on that. We lost a large customer back in November, December. Freedom Waste chose to go a different way, directly to a landfill, or and I'm not sure which one. Alan may know, but that was a good customer for us. It was $50,000 a month in revenue side, so it was, you know, substantial, between $8,000 and $10,000 a month on the profit side for the transfer station. With that loss, we're in pretty financial tight times right now. So when Alan contacted the board to discuss kind of strategically how we move forward, we took a look at the bills we were paying, one of which is the post-closure expenses, that again is a county liability. And our request to the county was two-part. One, that going forward they pay those expenses so that we don't pay them. There's I guess 8 years left on that closure before we complete that. What those post-closure costs involve are maintaining monitoring test wells and the testing on those, and of course we have the closure of those going forward. The $35,000 number is the high number that we gave you for the annual expenses that are related to that. The calculation that's performed last time by DNR, which was in 2014, when they presented you with your financial assurance instrument, estimated those annual costs to be about $17,000 a year. And we have high years and low years. 17 is probably a pretty close number. You know, if we take a 5-year rolling average on it, it's probably closer to 17. But the expenses don't occur all in 1 year. There's high years and low years. The second part of our request was that the county consider reimbursing us for at least the last couple of years of expenses that we've incurred in order to help us overcome our cash shortfalls. I believe your obligation to DNR, which is secured against your future tax revenues if we're unable to maintain that function, is $250,000 as of 2017 when we signed the last agreement. So that's our request. There was some information requested. Mr. Cyberlick requested our most current financial statements. So we contacted our auditors, or accounting firm, I should say, Crouch, Farley & Hiram, to update those to the most current. They weren't able to get those done yesterday. We're hoping to have them to you this afternoon so that you have just an open book representation of what our cash position is.
So Greg, if the county refused to take it over, they just hold future funds, the state would, to the county, correct?
Well, here are the absolute darkest side of the equation. If the corporation just became financially untenable and the board decided it was just time to fold operations, which we had no intention of doing, we would leave some creditors in dire straits. We would deed the property back over. Wouldn't have to deed the property back over to the county. In fact, we'd just have to file an affidavit that we'd ceased operations against the property, and it would automatically revert back to you. And you would be financially responsible for managing the post-closure expenses if we're unable to do it. You know, the worst part of not having the transfer station available for the county is from a community and economic development standpoint. The corporation, its revenues and expenses are what they are, and you know it's run pretty skinny and tight. There's no fat on the bone. But we already have immense amount of illicit dump sites all over this county. And I travel all over back roads in St. Francis County and Washington County doing things.
We've heard that.
I hide out a lot. But,
biking, for the most part.
Biking. But there are a lot of illicit dump sites around the county, and if we don't have a convenient way of disposal for folks that are using it, and for our local trash haulers to be able to dispose of it, it's not gonna be good in our county. We don't have a landfill, and probably, given the hurdles of having a landfill, we probably have one for a long time. The 3 cities that operate their own trash service in St. Francis County, Bonne Terre, Park Hills, and Deloge, they don't have the means to transport to the landfill. It's about an hour and a half round trip to Richwoods, you think, from closer to 2. They would have to store probably somewhere and have a contract hauler haul, so all their costs are going to go up to not using the landfill. And just, open book so you know what our costs are. Their tipping fee at the transfer station is $65 a ton. Our cost at the landfill is $35 a ton, and our trucking cost is about $11 a ton. Is that correct?
Yes, that tipping fee's going up with the regular cost of living increases.
So that's where we make our money, is on those markets. We also run a yard waste disposal site there, which Farmington has its own, which a lot of Farmington residents and not Farmington residents, trespass and use, but for Deloge, Park Hills, Bonne Terre, and then folks out in the county, and a lot of contractors, they use that. Demo waste goes there. So it's an asset to the county. Going forward, how do we keep the thing alive? And that's our principal concern. We have made some changes to our fee structures, but we believe that price is pretty elastic. How far we can go per ton on a price or a minimum price before people decide they're just going to illicitly dump trash is an unknown. We don't really know, but we think it's a pretty elastic cost. So we're very hesitant to keep increasing the price structure, but we have. We have also made some changes on the credit card user fees that we were paying. We're assessing a convenience fee for people who use credit cards, which is probably about $15,000 a year in revenue for us. We're asking the county to accept this part of it. We believe we can get the thing with some changes structurally in the business operation if we don't lose another big customer like one of the cities or something, where we can keep it live. Ultimately, we'd like to get it financially stable so that we can do, what the core mission, I think, and I wasn't part of the conversation, obviously, in 1972 and 73, but we need to all up the game in St. Francis County on environmental stewardship. I'd like to see the corporation get to a financially stable place where we can expand services. We just can't right now, but we need to be running area-wide household hazardous waste collection in St. Francis County to keep things out of the streams and the storm drains and illicit dumps. We need to be doing recycling for electronics to keep those heavy metals and those things out of the landfills. We need to be doing used tire collection. We need to be promoting all of those kinds of things. And there are grants available through the Senate Bill 4 dollars to support those things, but they all require a cash match. So we can't expand those opportunities and move to the next level of operation until we financially stabilize the thing.
Commissioners, Mr. Beavers, he's the city administrator of Farmington. He's been acting on behalf of all the residents in this county. Some of the costs that he was talking about, the closure costs, yes, they'll be up and down years, but like 2016, the cost was $36,192.38. A lot of these costs, well, all these costs deal with the closure. Water Movers Incorporated, check for $1,100. Missouri Department of Natural Resources, $1,800. Bar Engineering, $1,900. Gretel Engineering, $2,900. And the list just goes on and on. So, Mark Hedrick, he was the county clerk 2 years back, and he decided that he wasn't going to run again, so we needed someone to be on that board. I've been on that board, and I've seen Greg take the helm and steer it in the right direction. Alan Abishan is the director, and he has finally got to the point to, we have to do something. The county commission does not want to take control of that transfer station. It's working, it's just they did not anticipate the closure costs. So it's time for us to step into the game and help them out. Think about it like this: since 1994, the county has not spent a single dime with it. 2019, 26 years later, we need to act. So let's get that audit report and give it to the auditor, and let's try to come up with a number, but we do need to act fast. And like I said, Greg, thank you so much for, you're a city administrator, you've got your own issues, but yet you have stepped out and helped all these other municipalities. You've helped Alan. Alan, you have done an exemplary job being the director. The sleepless nights that you've been having problems with this last year, I hope in the ensuing days ahead, you can get back to a normal schedule. So let's get a number and let's try to help.
Alan, do you have anything to add?
No, that was inaccurate.
Okay.
Some of the things we've been doing over the years that put us in the hole was that those big contractors, we don't get a penny from any of those contractors, or any of those Waste Management, Republic, or what's the other one? CPI.
Yes.
Would you all then like to proceed, take a look at the financials, get with the auditor, figure out what we can afford for two reasons. If it comes back and dumps in our lap, we're gonna end up with it in that mind. The second thing is just the practical thing that he mentioned, that people are gonna be dumping all over the county. But you have to look what's gonna fit into our budget both this year and the next 2 or 3 years that you can't act on the next 2 or 3 years, but you can know that you're gonna put a line item. If you would like to come back in the future, we can put that on the calendar whenever you think it's ready, if that's
And
what
we can't send out any funds without documentation, so we'll have to verify that. And to highlight your point about dumping, last week, I believe it was, we had pictures on the screen of a road that is actually blocked off, county road, because people literally dump truck load of stuff, 4 dump truck loads, as a matter of fact, in the middle of the road. It's that bad. So we verify that. So with your financial documentation.
Those should be available today, which we'll forward.
Okay, and they promised me a quick study of it. Yeah, so I'm looking. And they promised me a quick study of that, and we'll have to act on it, but I guess we have to recall a special meeting or something on it, but.
We can, but I think we could set it on the agenda for next week, and you'll have some recommendation today, and you can put it on the agenda and let them know what you're gonna do for this current year.
Yeah.
And then we can put a line item in next year's budget through the auditor. And if we'll do that, knowing, if they know that we're gonna try to shore up their budget right now, and the auditor's gonna, to make sure we have a line item to be able to put something in the future, we can't get them completely out of debt, but we could get them to where they have some assurances that we're going forward.
Take a breath.
Yeah, right, that there
This
is.
is a report and not an action. Cindy, did you say something?
I was just gonna say, is this up for public discussion right now, today's meeting, this subject?
Well, if you have a question on this
Well,
topic.
yeah, because from what I understand, the shortfall occurred because of the loss from Freedom Waste, of the contract from them, or
Well, it's a little worse than that. Here, if you look at our acid test for the corporation, you'll find that it's really bad. We're just not liquid. We've never been liquid. So if you look at our current assets, current liabilities, it's an ugly picture. We have always been paying 90 days after a landfill bill. Okay, so we haul the landfill in January. We don't get billed for that landfill, or those bills aren't due till 3 months later. So what happens to us, and we have some debts we've been paying down on. When we lost Freedom Waste, say in November, we had a large landfill bill because we had their disposal. Then fast forward 3 months, we're into the winter time when the revenue is way down. We had high bills due. Okay, so there's that lag to catch up. What we think, where we believe the forecasts are today, and I'll give you the quick shot on the landfill cost. We believe our cash shortfall this month is about $67,000. Okay, if the county can assist us by paying some of those past couple years of closure cost to help bring that up to a zero base, and then pay the closure cost, and again, that's already your liability. If the corporation quits performing those tasks, you're going to have to pay it, and the way you're going to pay it, I don't say that like a threat, I don't want it to sound that way, but the way you would pay it is DNR would step in, and I assure you, the guy that does the work that Alan does for the closure is going to be some civil engineer, so it'll cost a lot more than, because we're paying the soft cost of the closure, it's just a hard cost.
But there's a chance of that customer coming back, because they have to be hauling their
That was my
waste all
question.
the time.
If we lost Freedom Waste, is there not an opportunity to regain that?
We've already tried that.
Why did we lose it though?
Cost.
Yeah.
Cost. Our cost is $65. Our hard cost is $48. Okay, so our tipping fee is $35. Our transportation cost is $48. Or I'm sorry, it's $11. So we're at $48 per ton for disposal. He's less than that taking it directly to the landfill. So there's no upside for him to bring it through the transfer station. And that's true of a lot of the haulers. Fuel costs go up, that could change. Their costs go up at the landfill, that could change. If we were to lose one of the cities, which I don't, we're not going to, but if they were to make a decision that they were going to franchise that out rather than collect it themselves, we'd be underwater. There's just numbers to work.
Yeah.
I'm Kenny Shirelli. I'm the owner of Freedom Waste. So I came here just to listen today and kind of hear what was going on. A couple weeks ago, I did meet with Alan Aubuchon at the transfer station. I've known Alan since I was like 12 years old. My parents had a trash company in this town that I started working for when I was 12. This is my hometown. The waste industry has basically been my entire life. When I was a small child, I remember climbing around on trash trucks at my dad's work. My parents had a couple of companies growing up that I worked for. I'm very interested in sustainability and environmental with recycling and a lot of other avenues and features. I've spent years and years studying this stuff and looking at options to be more profitable and do things different with the waste. Mr. Beavers and Patrick Mullins, I know that you guys are on the board. For years I've requested a meeting with the board of the transfer station to look at some recycling ideas that I think are viable and could actually help. I've been actually working with a recycling company out of Colorado. They set up the systems and install everything. We've been going over projections over how much waste is generated in our county and what they're currently paying, what they're getting paid for their recycling techniques, what's called a material recovery facility. They are extremely profitable, and we have done a lot of number crunching that we could make the waste that's in this county that comes to that transfer station extremely profitable with a recycling option. And we would have to process and bail now, at the transfer station, but this is something that I would love to speak to the transfer station board about. If we could ever set up a meeting or anything else, I would love to be able to do that, because I want to move forward with recycling and sustainability. And Mr. Beavers, I know that that's something that you've talked about a lot, that if a city's not concerned about being sustainable, they're falling behind very quick. And I feel like our county is with the waste. There's a lot of things that we can do with this valuable resource stream, and I believe that I can be an asset to the transfer station and to the county if you allow me.
So Kenny, what you're saying is we could actually make it a profitable operation if we were to initiate some of the things that you're talking about. In other words, we just change the total way that we process waste.
I believe that we could become more profitable. I believe that we could become better for our environment. I believe we could become better for our community and better for ourselves, whether you're part of the transfer station, whether you're part of the county, or whether you're a local hauler like myself. So I don't think it's as bad necessarily as what it may seem, but I think we need a few creative ideas and some communication, and I would love to be a part of that if I could be. We are rapidly increasing new customers. There's been quite a few of the smaller haulers that have went out of business. We are inundated with a flood of new service. The large haulers continuously raise their prices. This week alone, I can't tell you how many new customers we've signed up. Just every single day is a complete and total flood coming in, and I would love to keep our business local and to these local transfer stations. There's a lot of opportunity here, so I would like to be involved in that.
To the board members, can you set up that meeting and discuss it?
Yeah, as a practical matter, material recovery facility is a several $1 million investment, and corporations in no position to do that. So transferring to that, I don't know how we would even get there at this point.
Well, that would be a meeting between you guys. And
Sure, we can do that.
Kenny?
I was just going to say I've actually already spoke to a local bank, and they are interested in doing the financing for me.
So it
If-
sounds
if
like
I
you
can-
guys
if
have
I
a lot
can-
to talk about.
If I can, I would love that opportunity to talk. I know a few weeks ago I asked Alan, we haven't followed up, after our last conversation, so I would like that opportunity.
Well, we appreciate your input. Now, back to the topic at hand is the closure cost. And you are going to get documentation to us for that.
Alan just received an email, so we have the financial report.
We have that, and we'll get it to the auditors, and they will assess it, and then we will process as quickly as we can and get that moving with those documented efforts. Any other questions?
Well,
Yes.
because that sounded really easy, but I can tell you, St. Louis County, St. Louis City, almost every other major market in the state is having the same problem. So maybe if we come up with that simple solution that they've been all looking for and haven't found it.
The MRF where we were taking the recycled materials that we were collecting shut down. China quit taking recycled materials until they passed this.
Article 2 weeks ago where there's no market for it, so we
People
have to create a market. So it's not that simple, but hopefully you can work something out.
China buys it, but you have to get it down to basically 3% or less contamination rate in recycled material before they'll take it. There's a lot of cost to it. Farmington's Recycle Center, they started charging us an additional $1,100 a month just for additional sorting. They cost us about $40,000 a year for that.
I was just gonna say that the recycling market is bad because of China, India, and a lot of other countries that used to receive America's waste no longer does so. The waste problem is part of the environmental change problem that all of humanity is facing. I don't know if you guys, are up to date on the climate change, carbon emissions, and what we have to do in the next 12 years to reduce our carbon emissions to decrease and stay under the 2% global warming issue that we have. The waste industry is a huge part of that. The World Global Business Bank has listed innovations in the waste industry as the #3 business opportunity in the entire world for 2019. I can tell you that this is the perfect time to fix kind of everything and put new programs in place. The city of St. Peters has an extremely successful recycling program. At the last recycling conference I was at a few months ago in St. Louis, the city of St. Peters actually is hauling now other cities and some extra waste for St. Louis County because their program is so successful. And what they've done is actually switched up their hauling practices. And that is something that I would like to bring in. There's alternative hauling methods that actually isn't that much different, but cuts a lot of the expense down and the sorting process and a lot of those other things. So we don't have to make major changes, but if we make a couple, it allows everything to be a lot more valuable. In St. Louis, there actually are two plastic recyclers that buy scrap plastics in bales or processed, and they actually manufacture stuff right there in St. Louis. So that is something that we would be looking to, so that we would process it. That would be my dream, right? I'm saying that as what I've always wanted to do. Because the issue with recycling, we'd bale it all, send it to China, it would go through 3 or 4 people before it got over there, so by the time it got over there, it was a big mess. But if we can sort it here, separate it, and get it to ship it straight to a manufacturer that has the value, that's how we increase the value. The successful recycling practices all over the world, that's what they're doing, is at the site, they do an extra step of processing and try to find an end manufacturer to send it straight to. And that's where the most successful thing is. So if we haul it a little different, process it, or handle it a little bit different, it can be profitable. I
And
mean,
also-
this is being done all over the world, so if we do it right, we'll be good.
Okay, Ben?
And in support, my family owned Mega One Enterprises from 1981 till 2006. It was a trash and recycling firm all across the southern United States, including Missouri, with all the federal-based contracts. One of our biggest businesses, even at that time, when recycling wasn't as big of a deal and there was no money in it, was exactly what he was doing. Out of Warrensburg, Missouri, we operated our own sorting facility where we went straight to a manufacturer. It is an incredibly profitable business if you have that ability. The other thing is there's also incredible amount of money still in alloys if you sort them off. We have one of the largest alloy companies right up 55 on South Broadway. Southern Metals would kill to get involved in something like this. If you need a person to meet there, that's like my adopted family.
Okay.
But this is something that I think even it's preemptive. A business is failing, yes, but there's plenty of people that are interested in seeing the overall good for the county and save our tax dollars. I think that should be the overall goal to happen, and the county should encourage it as much as they can.
Okay. Now, I'm gonna stop the conversation because we are off topic. This is an important topic, but we are off topic of the agenda item. So the point of the agenda item is that we've got the documentation coming in, we'll take care of that, we'll get that moving, and you guys are gonna meet with the Kenny and others, or whoever, to work about these, to talk about these other situations. Okay? Okay, this is a report and not necessarily an action at this point, so I'll move on to the next topic. Thank you all. Local Records Preservation Grant Program. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, we have some surplus equipment we'd like to add to that landfill. We're gonna want to remove from our inventory, and one of those items, the first one, is a 3M 630 reader printer purchased in the 80s. It hasn't worked for approximately 10 years, and they don't make parts for it anymore, so we want to get rid of that. And then Laminex laminating piece of equipment purchased in the 70s. It doesn't work anymore, so we're trying to get rid of that and get it out of our area, and just a bother to have it there and collecting dust. So, and one other item are 9 Ithaca receipt printers that are out of date, outmoded, and these printers are obsolete, have already been replaced with other Epson printers, so we're not going to be, don't need those anymore.
Okay, so you have serial numbers and they're on the asset list?
They're on the inventory, and we're just,
okay, so
just want to take them off the inventory.
we've already acted on this? Okay.
That was the first item.
Okay.
He's just telling you what he surplused.
Okay, and so this is a report then, and you are going to get those serial numbers to the auditor's office and get that off the asset list, and we'll take care of it.
Correct.
Thank you, sir, we appreciate it.
No, wait a second,
Yeah.
the grant.
Oh, what, you want to go with that next?
Yes.
Okay, that's,
Okay.
our office is working with a local records preservation grant. That's we've done it over the past 2 years. 2017, we call that phase 1. 2018 was phase 2, and we're going into phase 3 right now. We have done the proper applications. So right now we're in the middle of finding whether or not we're going to be granted that award to proceed for our 3rd phase. So just wanted to make the board aware of that.
Okay.
That's all.
We don't need action on that?
Nope,
Just a
just to
report.
let you know.
Okay, thank you, Jack, appreciate you. Trustee sale, Ms. Collector. Are you gonna talk about trustee sale? Okay, it's on the agenda.
Well, I think you were gonna sign the papers that the trustee sales that went over the past year. We just gave you a copy of everything that was sold, parcel number and names.
Okay, I think I've done that, so we appreciate your report. And, personal property taxes taken off tax books, you wanna talk about that? Is that
The
another?
statute says after 5 years, they can be taken off the books. It's uncollectible property tax. Personal property, people have moved away, are deceased, that have been out there for years.
Okay, just to clean the books, basically, of uncollectible items.
Yes.
Okay, another report, thank you. Do we need to act on that? We don't need to okay that.
No.
Alright. Late fees and
If there's any action needs to be taken, we'll be on next week's, but I think it's just automatically comes on.
Yeah.
It's just a report.
late fees and codes, county collector, sir. County clerk, I'm sorry.
You do want to act on this if you want it to be implemented. One of the problems we're having is our county liquor licenses, people have no incentive to get them on time, and we have had a record in the past. The state charges 100% fee if you're late. What we're saying is, let's give them 30 days to get it in. If they're not, we charge a 20% fee, and then we increase it every 10% every month after that. The reason being, they have to have some incentive, and the only incentive they have now is to get next year's liquor license. They have to pay last year's. then they don't pay this year until a year from now. That seems ridiculous, and we checked with the state, and you have the ability to implement a, everything else we do in taxes and everything else has a penalty to incentivize the people to pay it on time. If they don't pay it on time, it should be a progressive fee if they don't, if they wanna keep their liquor license.
Now, your 20% penalty is based on the price of the new license, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and what is that?
Yeah, go ahead.
It varies, depending on the license. A Sunday license for original package
Type of
is
license.
200 and original's 100.
Okay.
We do charge a $3 clerk fee per license. Our most expensive, usually is about $506. That is some of the resorts type things.
And that's state mandated.
Is
We
this
we
a-
don't just make it up.
Is this a recommendation on
It
your part?
is.
Do I have a motion?
On the recommendation of the clerk, I move that we impose a penalty for late payment on late licensure renewal.
And I will second that.
Any questions? Dan, first. Go
I
ahead.
just want to let you know that in the past, we, my deputies have gone out and notified these people, they haven't paid their license. We had no teeth in it. What Kevin was saying is correct, and if they say, go fly a kite, nothing we can do about it at that point. And we're still willing to do that.
And you can't even shut them down.
Exactly.
Amber?
Does it max out the penalty? Does
Well,
it max out like 100 or?
Where you would have a max is the next year they owe their, so they always get it the next year because they, in order to stay in business, they've got to, you see, they're always, but
Right.
we could put a, we could amend it to have the max, then
Well,
that would be.
that adds up to 50 or 60%, something like that, for the end of the year.
Just curious.
To the end of the year.
Yeah, something like that.
And I would assume that your motion contains that it would stop at the end of the year.
Well, we'd have to
Can
make a
be.
motion.
I amend
Yes.
that motion.
Okay. Any other questions?
First vote on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment?
All, yeah, all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Now,
All opposed? Thank you.
motion.
Okay,
Wait a second. You just voted on the amendment.
the amendment,
The
okay.
motion's been amended, now you vote on the motion.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment to the,
No, the motion, the underlying motion.
we did that.
You voted on the amendment,
Okay.
asked for the amendment, now you amended the motion, and now you vote on the underlying motion.
All in favor
I'm sorry, I
of the
confused you.
original motion? say aye.
The amended motion, yes.
That's right, as amended.
As amended, okay.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Are
Okay.
we done now?
We're done.
Okay. Okay, rebid annual salt, there were specifications issues on that, and they have decided to, open that up for a rebid of the sealed bids. And
Yes.
that take care of it?
Yeah, we just didn't have enough detail or specifications, inadvertent error on our part.
Okay.
And we figured the fairest thing to do was just to rebid it with these additional
Now,
specifications.
we passed this on the consent agenda, and it was listed on that, so that's,
That's straightforward.
yeah, okay. And, rebid annual pest control bid, basically we left the building off of it, so that will rebid that too. So, again, a report. Next regular meeting is this time, same here, right here, so, welcome back. Correspondence, I think you have something.
I do. I have some correspondence from Representative Del Wright. Dear Harold, Gay, and Patrick, congratulations on St. Francis County being designated as an agri-ready county. In the Farm Bureau's centennial year, it is an honor to receive the recognition. Thank you for your support of our farmers who play such an important role in our area economy. My very best to all of you. Kind regards, Representative Del Wright. And he clipped out a little article, so we're certainly proud of that. Worked with Mr. Gamble and Mr. Ben Davis for approximately a year, meetings before that, getting everything ironed out, so, but thanks for the correspondence, it's nice.
Any other correspondence? Public comment? Departmental reports, okay, election.
Yeah, we've got election here in 2 weeks from today. We will do the pre-test on March 21st at 9 a.m. And if anybody would like, Jackie in our department did a great report on the complete election process, and there's copies available. It talks about everything that goes on from 5 o'clock in the morning at those polls, what happens, what needs to be happened. So if you would like a copy of that for any reason, and this is one of the things, who comes in, who verifies the pre-test, you know, and there's a group that does the post test, and then there's a precinct that's selected at random, and then the count's verified, that make sure the machines are correct afterwards, and there's a group that tests that. So if you would like that, let me know. Also, we made a decision on cell towers. It was kind of a gray area that we had the ability to do. We should have building permits on cell towers. Almost all of the cell tower people are outside the county and major corporations. When we tell them it's $8, it's not. Now, if they're changing their equipment on top of the tower, that's different. But if they're building the tower, I just thought I'd tell you, we're charging them for the building permits because it's over $600. I told you last week we would probably have to wait on getting the minutes on the past 3 years on the website until after the election, but they got them on today. Amanda, you put them on this morning, is that right? And you're going to give a little report on that if you would, to show, so if somebody wants to access it, so that the past 3 years, and if you need something else on, so that to avoid sunshine requests, basically, let us know what it is, and we will get it on so you can go to the site and see exactly what you're inquiring.
Right, and after the meeting, I'll have it up on the projector, but if you go to our website, sfcgov.org, and select on the commission tab on the left-hand side of the screen, it'll have the tabs for the archive, I think it's the archive commission agenda and minutes for the last 3 years, as well as some other links that we've been working on as well for the last few weeks. But I'll have that up here after the presentation on the slideshow.
And if any of the other office holders or department heads want things that they think should be public record, that either they're going to get requested or whatever, we can put it up there, and we'd like to have it there so that people can look at it without having to sunshine your office for that information.
Absolutely.
Well, I got Dan warmed up. He's running full speed on his emergency management director job. He's working on grants, he's working on situations, he's got an office space picked out. I'm proud of him. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, Maple Street property remediation is going well. That red arrow in there is the dimensions of what they're actually putting in as lift. They took out 3 feet of contaminated soil, and they'll spend several days hauling out soil, then they'll haul in several days. You see 2 trucks there at this time. There's a steady stream of trucks coming in, and it's going well, and we're getting the bill free, basically.
The rock and the clean material is free.
Yeah.
We just have to pay a scale fee, nominal scale fee, but all the material that we're getting, a local quarry has donated that. It was some waste material that they had that they couldn't use, and it's clean. We probably are about 2 weeks away from being finished.
And that scale fee is also used for documentation per
For DNR.
brownfield.
It's proof that we bought the material.
So that they know the weight and the volume of rock that we put back in.
Who deemed it contaminated?
DNR, or Brownfield, DNR did. They core drilled it, checked it and tested it, and the contamination dealt with lead in a sense that for 40 years, the lead chat is what was spread on the roads for ice and snow control, and it was stockpiled there, and it slowly leached into the ground, and so that's what is being cleaned up. So
That's considered very minor contamination when you only have to go down that far. If it was major, you would have to either to get a clean bill.
There's a 10-foot hole there by those flags.
It's right in front of the picture. I didn't show it, but right in front of the picture, there's a 10-foot deep hole where the old service station or the old fuel tank was.
That has to go down.
And that had to go down 10 feet. So that's how much we're taking out. Now, I'm gonna brag about you guys. I was there yesterday watching this, and you see on the left is the new skid steer, and on the right, one of the old backhoes. The skid steer was moving approximately twice as much rock as the backhoe was. The skid steer is on hydraulic power, and the other backhoe is on gear power. And these guys have decided that it's more efficient to, as we start replacing our old backhoes, to start buying skid steers. The skid steer costs about half what a backhoe costs. So we're moving more material. Now there's some jobs that skid steer will never do that the backhoe will. We will always have to have backhoes. But it's just amazing the efficiency that skid steer has done. And we see that through the equipment purchases, and we appreciate that. And that's getting more work done with less equipment and fewer people, and it's great. So proud of you guys on that. Mr. Auditor is going to talk about some goals.
Commissioners,
when I came into office a few years ago, I reached out to the ladies of the office because we all know who really runs the county, and it's the ladies in the office, to be quite frank with you. And Amber and the ladies had a meeting of the mind, so to speak. And what they did was they put together a list of goals in 2018, which you can see that was posted on the board. We failed in completing those goals. Quite honestly, we had a pregnancy in the office, not mine. We had a change of front office management, and we also had something called a state audit that interfered with completion of this. And you can see that we completed the internal control document known as the SAS 122. We attempted to complete it, but it was not. We updated the purchasing policy. It was completed but not approved by the commission. We defined job duties as recommended by HR. Monthly expenses are presented now in commission meeting and posted online. Monthly financials, which is an extension of those expenses, we have not fully completed the way we want to present that. The audit on Road and Bridge, when Mr. Jarvis left, we completed that as well. Petty cash audits were completed, which had not been done for a while. Updated authorization letters annually. Inventory addition and disposal forms, and also we did I'll say a preliminary asset inventory on different departments, but we didn't do the complete audit that we need to do, and that'll happen for sure this year. Backup information and cross-training annually, but here's our goals coming into this year. Again, to finish those internal control documents. Also, the purchase policy needs to be approved by the commission. We're discussing how to extend cell phone, or how to implement cell phone stipends. We need to have the coroner trained on the Tyler program. As we mentioned, inventory control and tag all assets. And how we're doing that is we actually have a metal, what do you call it, a metal tag, I guess, right? Just a metal tag that has an inventory number that is attached to that item.
Firmly attached.
So firmly attached, we might add, so that in the event, or when we change any asset, it'll be, rather than, because we're walking in right now with a piece of paper that says brown desk. You know, and there's 14 brown desks. So we're trying to identify specifically. Kim's gone through this, so she knows, and it's going to help us in the future, particularly when you take items off the assets list, okay, to identify it. Payroll adjustments and liabilities to the county clerk, we're working on that. The annual bid, you've seen the results of that so far this year, I think, and that needs to be probably tweaked somewhat. Audit the certified payroll, particularly for Road and Bridge. That comes through your remediation process, things like that. Monthly financials prepared. Better communication with the inventory asset changes. And I'll give you a quick example. We were in the basement of the courthouse, which, by the way, Brian has really cleaned up that basement. Or somebody did. I don't know if Brian did, but somebody did, and it really, really looks good.
I don't know how you found time, but he...
Yeah, it really, really looks good. But, you know, we walked in there and there were some items like, well, what's this? What's that? What's this? Because when we changed office holders, January 1, we had to audit those new office, or the old office holders going out, and identify what was their items, personal items, etc. And Solo's office holder's been there a few years, so, you know, well, how do we know that's yours, and how do we know this is ours, that type of thing. So it went very, very well, but there were some items that when we went to the basement, it's like, what the hell is that? And, you know, some people are just scratching their head, well, we don't know, it's been here for like 85 years or something, you know, okay. So we're working on that. Better communication, what we said about inventory and asset changes. Cross-training every year, and then we've added one other item to this, and that is a technology update for the collector's office to better realize where we are standing with all of the finances. That's our projection. A year from now, I hope to be able to stand in front of you and say all of those 2019 goals are completed. And we want to thank the Amber-led office for putting this together. I have a new person coming to work for us next Monday, and we're confident that we can get these accomplished for the taxpayers.
Now, is Amber that one that found that $65,000 item in the commission asset list? We had no clue what it was. And turned out, was it the postage machine used over there for 100 years? Or
No.
what was that?
What did we understand?
It's still an unidentified item that we have down in the basement. It was not $65,000. We think that somebody made a decimal error.
Adjustment, okay. Well, this goes back forever, but it just, these guys found that, so, all right.
Actually, it was Amber, and then Bridget is the one that followed up, and then me and Bridget had to climb underneath the stuff to try to figure out what it was and everything.
It's still over there, you just don't know
But
what
it's
it
still
is.
over there, we still don't know what it is, so if anybody wants to walk over and take a look at it and identify it,
So
I'd
it's all
appreciate
Amber's
it.
fault.
It always goes back to Amber.
Thank you for that report. Do I have any other departmental reports? Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
And I'll second that.
All in favor? Who wants to know about baking?